January 1st has been a problematic day through history. It hasn't always been the first day of the calendar year. I don't think up until about 1730 something in this country, it was not the first day of the calendar year. And as you go back even to the times of the ancient Romans, they always were changing the first day of the year for various reasons. But Christians always knew what to do with the 8th day after the Feast of Christmas, because the Christian people never could really come to grips with the celebration of Christmas and Easter and Pentecost on one day. So they stretched out the feast for 8 days, and the final day was the octave day, and that was the day when the feast came to its conclusion. That's not a modern way of thinking, but that's the way the church still thinks about Christmas and Easter. We spread the feast out over 8 days. It gives us time to do what Mary did, to ponder, to reflect, to think about, if we will take the time to ponder and reflect, which is another problem for us moderns. We seem to have not enough time, even though we have all the time-saving equipment in the world. Like, it's really a paradox, isn't it? One of the things you come to grips with in the pondering of the things that our religion presents to us is that all of what we're pondering is something that God has done. It's an action of God, an initiative of God, not something that we have done. Our job is to respond to God's action. And you go all the way back through the books of the Bible, and it's always God acting and human beings responding in one way or another. So perhaps it might be on this last day of the Christmas celebration a good thing to look at the way some of the people in this narrative have responded to what God did to them or for them. Joseph, to me, is one of the greatest responders, because I'm sure he was no more settled in his mind as to what this was all about when he obeyed God. He just went along with the circumstances of his life, even though they were very confusing and I'm sure very upsetting, so that God could work out through him God's plan, not just for him, but for all of us. Mary, of course, as we are told in the gospel today, she pondered these things. She didn't have much to say. Even all through the New Testament, she says very little. But she pondered and then cooperated. And I'm sure she didn't have, we look at these nativity scenes and Christmas cards, and we have the whole thing in our mind and we know what happened, but these people didn't have that. They were going through it day by day, moment by moment, not knowing what it was all about and not knowing what was coming next, which is a pretty good description of your life and my life. We don't know what's coming next. We don't know what the new year will bring. But everything that happens is permitted or caused by God in our lives. Everything. Nothing takes God by surprise. And we are called upon to respond to what often takes us by surprise, in the same way that the people presented to us in this narrative of the birth of Christ responded, not knowing all the answers, but obeying the circumstances of our life as God would have us do. And that's not a bad resolution to make at the beginning of the calendar year, since we are in the habit of making resolutions. I hope it's one we cannot break during the coming year. How have I responded to the unexpected in my life? The upsetting unexpected, especially. The unwelcomed unexpected. Do I look upon it as God's activity, as God's calling me forward? Or do I look upon it as an interruption in my plan of my life, which is often unwittingly not God's plan for my life. So Mary and Joseph, and even the shepherds, those poor blokes, you know, do you think they ever got the whole story? They went back to being the scum of society, the unwashed and the unchurched. But yet God broke into their lives and revealed something to them which must have made a change if they have responded appropriately. Do we let the actions of God in our life change us, or do we just try to change God? That's the question Scripture presents to us in these readings today, I think. The first reading is a blessing that the Jewish priest gave to the people. And it's a blessing which certainly can be extended to us and is extended to us in the final blessing of this Mass. But our part in this narrative, which is an ongoing narrative, this isn't ancient history. This is the beginning of real history, when God breaks in his activity into the world that we think is our world, and we are called upon to respond. We are the responders of this century, of this year, of this day. So with the help of God and the grace and the prayer of Mary and Joseph and people like that, we will respond positively, obediently, and trustingly in the God who calls us day by day, event by event, and person by person.